Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Jay Pestridge. Welcome to another P3D video, and today we're going to be looking at P3D version 6, where we show the default airplane and the default airport. And this is a continuation from the previous video where we're having a look at the performance of my GPU, which seems to be getting nailed, and my CPU is kind of like whatever. And I'm getting like 25 frames at 6 out of 10 VRAM. All my sliders, like I said before, are a bit higher than I probably would have them. Spinning around, my frames go up and down. My VRAM kind of tends to stay the same. And this is the default plane now. I don't know what make it is, but it does look pretty good. Inside of the plane, we have new reflections on the windows. I mean, somebody needs to clean their flight deck windows here. And everything looks pretty good. Now, in terms of textures, everything's been given a revamp. This sim supports 8K resolution, so developers start making 8K versions of your planes, and this will look a lot better. This, I believe, is a 4K flight deck, which I'm displaying only at 2K, so there is a degradation of the flight deck here, and it's the same with all the other textures. But if you've got like a really good GPU, you can display all your textures at 4K, and you'll be good to go. One thing I didn't show in the last video was my GPU settings for NVIDIA, which I'm very sorry I forgot to do, for P3D in fact. So one thing we're going to do is start from the top here and choose the My Preference emphasizing performance, then go to use the advanced 3D settings and take me there, and load up program settings. Now global should be as default, shouldn't touch anything on global, but program settings for P3D specifically are going to look like this. I use image scaling, so it sharpens on the GPU. I tend to find that is really nice. Anisotropic filtering is on 4 and the anti-aliasing is on 2, and you want the mode set to override any application setting. This means your GPU is now handling the anti-aliasing, which is probably why it's getting hammered. I could obviously change this to the CPU for the sim, so I could basically turn this off and then reapply it in the sim, and it might even do a better job. And at the end of the day, my CPU would start to get hammered and my GPU load would go down. So if I just did off, and the other one went off by default, and apply that. Obviously it might not show in the sim right now because we're actually in the sim, and it might only show on the next restart. But if I then go into the graphics setting and I selected kind of the same settings, so texture filtering was set to 4 and 2 on the MSAA. Now MSSA versus SSAA, I believe, takes a lot more of a hammering on your GPU, so we'll see. Now in terms of performance for my frame rate, it's gone down. My VRAM's gone up slightly, and my GPU, although I need to restart my sim, hasn't done anything. So let's restart this sim, and this shall now set. Let's finish the rest of these settings off as well. So I limit my frame rate to a 33 maximum. Sometimes it was 44, but because my monitor is set to 30 hertz, I only want 30 maximum on the frame rate. So I limit my frame rate to 33, and that sort of, the GPU tries to aim for 33, which is what it can do easily, and it usually hovers around 30 when I do that. I do have multi-frame sampled AA on because this, at the end of the day, is a sim using legacy add-ons, and a lot of these legacy add-ons really require this to be on to be more compatible. Same with this, I have preferred compatibility on the OpenGL GDI compatibility. I use maximum performance for the power management, and I have the highest available for refresh rate for my monitor to help the sim achieve that 30 FPS. I click allow for the negative LOD bias, so it performs better. And the high quality setting on texture filtering means it turns off all texture filtering optimizations to provide the highest visual quality. So this probably does a little bit more hard work than, say, quality. Quality will probably set you more performance over high quality, but I prefer, like, on terms of filtering those textures, the highest visual fidelity. I have trilinear turned on, but I'm going to turn this off now. And if we do get any sort of weirdness, I'll turn it back on. I don't use threaded optimization, leave that as the global setting, triple buffering, but I do have adapted half refresh. Now, I've been playing with this. I have my vertical sync set to on because my monitor is set to 30 hertz. So if I set that to anything else, it really probably wouldn't manage. But at the end of the day, I should actually have that set off because, you know, I've already sort of maximized my frame rate here. So anyway, those are my settings. I've saved it, and now we're going to restart the sim and head back to where we were. So we've loaded back up into the sim now, and let's have a look at our rates. VRAM's kind of 6.4, frames are still lagging, the GPU's still getting nailed, and my CPU hasn't really changed, and that's inside the flight deck. I tend to find that outside the flight deck frames go down a little bit, but in all honesty, by changing the things to the CPU, man, it looks dodgier. Look at this. It actually looks weirder. Things aren't what they seem. So, in all honesty, that is weird. So, I am actually going to change all that back because, yeah, rubbish, I think. On my particular setup, anyway. So, that goes back to that. And the GPU will go back, and it might save some frame rate. Now, because of the changes I made a little bit, it's lowered my GPU usage slightly and slightly increased the CPU usage. My frames are still kind of like iffy, but at the end of the day, there are still some changes that I can make that will help that and change it. So other than that, everything seems to be okay. So I'm going to head into my options, and I'm going to update my graphics settings. So in terms of world, I'm going to put these just to dense, and I'm going to change that to very dense instead. I'm going to change the mesh resolution to 10 centimeters in line with Orbex, and everything else can be left as is. Same with all of this, although I might use medium shadows quality on that, and that, I believe, will do. Yeah. Hang on, have I got the right one of them? No, I haven't. I've got the right one of that. It'll reload, and hopefully we'll have a little better performance. And there we go, we got our 30 frames. Our VRAM's gone down to 5.6, which means the GPU load should have lowered, which it slightly has, to 70 to 80%, and the CPU's at 40. So that to me is a lot better. And we just let everything load in by turning the camera 360, and it should then be a bit more stable. Now, that we're not finished, to be honest. At the end of the day, that's the plane, and the airport is Ronald Reagan, by the way, in Washington. So if you've got the Drezwecki design, it will load in at Ronald Reagan all the time. Just remember that when you're, you know, loading in. If you just load in a default airport, you know, and you've got Drezwecki design loaded in, just remember that. Yeah. I mean, it looks pretty good, to be honest. Everything looks really good. One thing I'd recommend if you're using default weather until active sky come along is use the fair weather profile, but change the coverage to scattered on the lower display, and on the higher one change it to broken, and you'll have a little bit better clouds in the sky. A little bit more realistic, I find, than what the default might bring. Again, all this is a work in progress, don't forget, guys. Every version patch update, they tweak things, and so things can change. Now, I'm going to add some entries into the CFG myself, and let's just see what difference that will make in terms of performance. So don't forget, CPU's at 40%, GPU's at like 80 to 90, and I've got sort of 25 to 30 frames, VRAM's at 6%. Let's make my changes and see what happens. So in the CFG file, this is the one that I had previously. So I took my affinity mask, I put that in. I'm not going to take anything else really here, but I did change the max point light and spotlight and increased it. Now this was a black marble setting, which I won't have in version 6, but it increases the amount of lights available, the amount of white point lights, basically. So now I have 900 available instead of 250. That might bring a bit more load. Actually, I'm going to put that to 500 instead. I'm just going to double it, basically. So there is double the amount of white point lights in the sim, because, to be honest, it looks pretty good. And the next little bit of change is, I believe, in the display. Texture max load is set to 30. I believe in the sim it's displayed at 60. So we're going to reduce that down to 30. Which basically means my textures will load in probably a little bit blurrier. And everything else is fine. Actually, I did have one, I'm sure. What else we got? Display, scenery. So this small part reject radius, basically this is a line of code that basically says for the scenery, anything that is below 1 pixel don't even display, which is handy for thinning out the sim a little bit. But in all honesty, what is going to be below 1 pixel in these? I doubt anything. I don't like to click Shift Z about 5 times, so I'm taking the locked frame rate, the GPU memory, and the frame rate, and I am taking it and having it as the only text info, and this basically will mean I don't have to click Shift 5 about 10 times. I only have to click it once, and then it will display my frame rate, which is a little bit less annoying. Want to make sure UI hardware acceleration is on. Now in the past I've turned that to false because I find it actually hampers the sim, but we're going to leave that for now and see what happens. And the next section is the terrain. Now I have found that, where is it? Terrain. Here it is. By increasing the LOD radius, right, it actually helps to crispen up your textures. So I'm going to increase this. I don't actually recommend this because it can increase the GPU load. I'm going to increase it by 5.5, and then we've got all of these here to go in, which I will explain exactly what they do. So use global terrain view, I set to true. Basically, every time you set a viewpoint in your display, so if you're in your flight deck and you want to see the outside of your aircraft within a smaller window, rather than render a brand new view, I've set it to true and it shares that view with the original render, so it doesn't actually have an additional load on your GPU. These two terrain max autogen for trees and buildings basically just increases the volume per batch that will load in, so you actually get more trees loading in, and that should actually benefit the sim now. Right, so our VRAM is lowered down to 5.4 now from 6.5. The frame rate seems to hover more around the 30 than it did before. Let's also just quickly zoom around here and load in the rest, because it seemed to stutter as well when we did. But wait for it to sort of settle down. In terms of CPU though, it's still getting sort of nailed at 90%, or it's, well, actually it's going down to like 85, Obviously that's going to depend at what I look at. CPU has gone down a little bit lower. The VRAM hasn't gone up as much though, and it's still getting about 30-ish frames. So, you know, we're all good here. Let's just quickly set this sucker up and go for a quick flight. I don't actually like this plane, to be fair, but we'll sort of see what it sounds like and what everything does, and see what the frame rate does. So in the sky we go. Whoa, and wheels up. And for the first time you'll get a first look at everything. There's been a lot of building updates here. These buildings look a lot better than they did in previous versions. They are a bit more custom made. That golf course looks a lot better. Things at this level here, altitude, what altitude are we at? Yeah, sort of 6,000 feet, do look a lot better. There's a bit more details in the texturing as well. There is less of the skankiness, you know. Oh, we got a plane here as well, coming in. Like I said before, if you change your weather to scattered on the first layer and broken on the second layer, you will actually get better cloud coverage on the fair weather profile. And it looks more realistic. My GPU is really suffering though. I probably might need to tune some of my settings down. Let me turn the sound down a bit, because it's really on the verge here. But that's because I'm running a 1080 Ti card, and at the end of the day, this can do... Whoa! This can do so much better in terms of if you have a 30 series card or 40 series card. Or I just might need to tune my settings, you know, or turn my speed down. I'm going at least like 500 miles an hour, to be fair. Obviously, like in a Cessna, it will do a lot differently. So basically that's it. I mean, I've got to say, it does actually look a lot better than it did in version 5. I'm actually going to try and whack in my texture pack, my terrain pack, and sort of see if that makes a difference. But, you know, this is a big improvement over V5. And like I said before, one of the main things it has, possibly, on launch is the tone mapping, which means that you can actually customize the look of the sim yourself. So if we activate it, and we can actually set values for how we want. Luckily, I have saved mine, so we want to actually head up into the sky, to be honest. We're about to crash. So 0.58 on that. 0.46 on that. 100 on the shoulder strength. Uh, 0.64 on that shoulder length. 100 on the angle, and 128 on gamma. Now, if we have a look around and look down there, this compared to when you untick it, I think looks a lot better. Clouds also look more deep and depth looking. The PBR on the textures down below actually stands out better, I believe, with shadowing. It looks less FSX-y, and it looks a bit more, I don't know, Microsoft-y, I guess, but it gives it more of an atmosphere. So we're going to keep those. I also implore you to check the, or actually it's under live graphics, to check the saturation, brightness, and here, which I do have settings for. So yeah. And that looks a little bit better. Oh dear. I'm not a pilot, guys. I don't fly outside the cockpit either. This ain't a game, boys. This ain't a game. Oh dear. Oh god, I'm gonna hurl chunks, guys. And I think I'm going down. Going downtown, boys. Uh-oh. Oh gosh. Trying to get hold of it. Literally. There we go. Oh, honestly trying to get hold of it. Let me get back in before we die. Oh dear. Crash and burn, boys. Crash and burn. Now, one thing to note about this is if we go to the time and season and we turn it to darkness, one thing you'll note is there is an auto exposure that happens. So if we look out here and turn it to darkness, it takes a while before the night lighting comes apparent, okay? Which has been improved, but it takes a while for that to happen, you know? I do believe that they have improved the sort of look here, and if we run a time preview here, woo, baby, look at that, sexy. Oh yeah, look at that, and you can actually see the sun shadowing move like it would in real life. That's actually pretty cool. Let's set it double speed so we can see the sunset again. Baby, baby. Here we go. Ooh, nice. And then, of course, you get the night lighting that sort of gradually filters in. Now, if you... the same thing happens if you look at a bright object, with like here, and then you look down at your aircraft, the auto exposure fills in. And there we go. That's basically it. So, yeah, that's version 6. That's the default airplane with the default airport. So, in the next video, we're going to compare Birmingham Airport with version 5 and see what it looks like. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, I give away €50 of Sim Market vouchers every single month to be in with a chance to win. All you have to do is be a subscriber to my channel, leave a comment down in any P3D video, and then at the end of the month when I go live, I'll announce the winner. And that winner will get €50 of Sim Market vouchers that you can spend on Sim Market on any flight sim add-on you like. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.